Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's live onboarding and device setup. I'm Tim from Ledger, and today I'm going to be showing you how to set up a Ledger device. I will be using the same device that I set up last week, and I believe even the week before, just because it's easier to do it that way rather than opening up a new one each time. So if you're wondering why there isn't like plastic surrounding this, that's the reason. I did already go in and reset this device and set everything back up so that it is like a brand new experience opening it up minus the plastic wrap. And I also resetted my Ledger Live. So it will be for if you are unboxing your own Nano and following along with me in this setup, then it will look pretty much exactly the same as what you're going to see in your experience. And also, I am setting up the Nano S Plus today. However, if you have a Nano X or even a Nano S and you're wanting to set up those devices, you can follow along with this same tutorial with this same guide here, and you'll be able to set up your own device, even if it's different than the Nano S Plus, because the setup process is pretty much the same for every single device. And we'll get more into that, and I'll show you the steps where things may differ a little bit. That way you can kind of guide your way through it as we go. Also, if you did come here to, if you have other questions and you just want some live support, we do have a moderator in the chat. We got Steve here. He's going to be answering your questions. Like he's already going. So if you do have questions about crypto, blockchain, your accounts, Ledger, go ahead and ask Steve, and he'll do his best to help you out. And a very huge thank you, Steve, for doing that. Okay, cool. So that frees me up to go ahead and show you guys how to set up this Ledger Nano S Plus. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm gonna switch over to this shot right here. You can see I already have Ledger Live pulled up right here on the screen. Behind here, I have a Chrome browser pulled up in case we need to access the internet or anything. But basically, when you download Ledger Live, this is what it'll look like when you first open it up. This is the opening scene of Ledger Live before anything's set up and from the very get-go. So we'll just go ahead and leave that up in the background, and I'll go ahead and start unboxing this Nano S Plus. All right, looks like the camera angle is a little, let me see if I can adjust that. That's better. Okay, cool. Now we can see a little bit more of it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull off this outer cover right here, hopefully without ripping it. Okay, set that aside. And take out this box, take out the top of the box right there. All right, so for the Nano S Plus, you have your actual device right there. You got these orange recovery sheets. I'm going to move those out. I'm going to move the Nano out. And then you have this little mold right here that comes out. We'll go ahead and remove that. Then you have a pink envelope. And inside this envelope, you have how to care for your device, regulatory information, some stickers, basically the things that you would expect to receive in a like in any electronic that you purchase. There are not really detailed instructions printed out on how to set up your Nano. However, if you right here, you see there's this get started pamphlet right here. This will give you some information, but mainly it's going to tell you to go to ledger.com/start and to download Ledger Live. And that's basically where you're going to get most like all the information on how to set it up. And then once you download the application, Ledger Live actually does a really good job at kind of guiding you through the entire setup process. So if you go here to get started and then you choose your Nano, we have a Nano S Plus. You can select this first time using your Nano S Plus, and then you can go through. It'll tell you basically all the key points, and it'll guide you through the process, and it'll help you get through to where you can start managing your accounts. However, since this is a live support from our support team, I'm going to go way above and beyond, and I'm going to info dump a lot of information on you in this onboarding. So we're going to skip this for now, and we're just going to set up this device ourselves, and then we're going to connect to Ledger Live afterwards. All right, cool. So I'm going to move this pink envelope over here. And one last thing inside this box, you can see this thing pulls out. This is your USB cable right here. You can hear it rattling around in there maybe. So it's got the USB cable, and it's also got a little little keychain that you can put on your Nano. You can slip this through the hole and kind of, you know, wear it on your Nano if you want. Personally, I always just keep my own Nanos just like in my desk drawer, like, so I don't ever use a keychain, but they actually are really cool keychains. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and just put that back in for now and then move it over. Okay, so now all we have left over here is the Nano and the recovery sheets. So if you've been to any of my other onboardings, you'll probably recognize this blue Nano right here that I set up 2 times already. And as such, 2 of the 3 recovery sheets are now used and missing from this. So we are down to our last recovery sheet for this Nano right here, for this box. So I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to move this orange envelope over. We're going to get more into detail on this here in a minute. But for now, let's just go ahead and set it to the side. And let's get our Nano plugged in. Okay. So the Nano S Plus uses a USB-C connector type, the same USB connector type that's used in newer Android devices, and pretty much, honestly, most electronics these days. Unless you have an iPhone, the iPhone still use the Lightning port. That's a proprietary Apple thing, but pretty much everything else is moving to the USB-C. So if you do have a USB-C cable already, it will most likely work with your Nano. Honestly, unless the cable's faulty, it will work. However, your Nano does also come with one, and so you can use that one as well. But this one's a little bit longer, so I'm going to use this one. It's wrapped around our entire setup here and plugged into my computer just to make things easier. I'm going to plug that in. Oh, and one thing that I don't know if I've mentioned this, but the Nano S Plus, if you'll know, I don't know if you can hear the actual audio click of this, but maybe not. I mean, I don't know if this microphone is picking it up, but the Nano S Plus tends to have a little bit of a tighter port. I've noticed after setting up like a whole bunch of Nanos, the Nano X and the Nano S, it goes in super smooth, and it doesn't have a really hard click. But I've received a number of complaints from users saying like, hey, I'm trying to plug in my Nano S Plus and the screen is flickering, or it's not powering on at all, or I'm having these weird like power issues. And so far in every case, it ended up being like, oh, actually, it's just a really tight fit. You got to like push a little harder than maybe you're used to, and then you get that click, and then it's fully inserted. So for the Nano S Plus, if you're getting weird power issues like that with your screen flickering or not turning on, make sure it's fully inserted. Yeah. In fact, the same thing happened to my mom when she was setting up her Nano S Plus. And I was there helping her, and we were like, oh, what's going on with this thing? Is it broken? So yeah, so keep that in mind. Something to look out for. All right, cool. So after you plug in your Nano S Plus or your Nano X or your Nano S, they will all open up to this same screen right here. And the only difference will be, it'll say welcome to Nano S Plus on this one. If it's a Nano X, it'll say welcome to Nano X or Nano S. And then press the right button to continue. All right, so on the Nano S Plus, you have your buttons up here on the top rail. The one closest to the USB port is the left button, and you can see the screen. Maybe you can see it. The writing makes it pretty easy to tell which one's the left and which one's the right button when you're using the device. But yeah, so then left button, right button. On the Nano X, of course, your buttons are going to be here and here. The device is a little bit longer, and the buttons are flat next to the screen. So yeah, so the right button will move you to the right, and the left button will move you back to the left. And then tapping both buttons at the same time, quick tap, will make a selection. So we want to navigate to the right, and we want to tap both buttons to continue. Not press and hold, just tap. Boom. And then select that, and then it reiterates that. Now it's telling you to download Ledger Live at ledger.com/start. And so if we go to that, down for a minute, ledger.com/start, you'll see that it takes us right to the download page for Ledger Live. First step, download Ledger Live for new people setting this up, and then it'll kind of guide you from there. Okay, so we're going to go, we already have Ledger Live. We've already done this, so I can go ahead and simulate, download, install. Okay, application open. Now we're here. Okay, go to the right, follow Ledger Live, the instructions to set up your Nano. So now you see that there are 2 options here, and now we're pretty much caught up to where we got to in Ledger Live. So you can see you have set up as a new device or restore from recovery phrase. And you can see here you have set up a new Nano S Plus because we chose Nano S Plus on the screen before. Remember, if we go back to previous, we can choose any Nano, and it'll say set up a Nano X or your Nano S. But we're doing Nano S Plus, so we'll select that. So now you see set up as a new device, set up a new Nano S Plus. This will clicking here, and then so one thing to keep in mind is that the steps that I'm taking right now are independent from one another. Ledger Live does not need to be accessed at all to set up this device. You can take this device, you can plug it into a wall outlet, not touching any computer or phone or anything that's connected to the internet at all, and you can generate yourself a 24-word recovery phrase, which is what we're about to do, to fully set up your device to be able to get started with your crypto journey. Using Ledger Live is nice because it'll guide you through the process, but it's not required. And that's an important distinction to make, because it's really nice to know as a new user that, okay, well, I've heard that this recovery phrase thing is really important, and I don't want to make any mistakes. And I don't really understand maybe how Ledger Live works in conjunction with my Nano. It's all very unclear. And maybe you'd feel more comfortable not using your computer or Ledger Live to set up your crypto accounts. So it's totally possible. And in fact, we're going to go like this, and I can just go ahead and close Ledger Live. So for now, we'll just close Ledger Live, and we'll continue on without Ledger Live. And so right now, for all intents and purposes, this Nano is plugged into just a power source. There's no way anything can access it. Even though it is plugged into the computer, there's no way the computer can access it or see what's happening on this device. These are all independent from one another. So you have these two options: restore from recovery phrase or set up as new device. So we already mentioned setting up as new device will set up a new recovery phrase for you. And it'll be its own unique thing. Whereas if you already have a recovery phrase, maybe you have a Nano that you've used in the past, and maybe you want to create a copy of that Nano for maybe your significant other to use, or someone you trust, or maybe you just want a backup of your Nano to have handy in case you're trying to make a transaction and your main Nano stops working, or you accidentally drop it in your coffee or something. Trust me, this has happened before. And you just want a backup to be able to quickly plug in and use to sign a transaction. That would be the option that you would choose. Or alternatively, if you already lost your Nano or it's broken and now you're just trying to figure out how you can regain access to your accounts, this is how you regain access to your accounts. You would take your 24-word recovery phrase, you would choose this option, and then you would import the recovery phrase into the Nano, and then it'll make it just like your old Nano. You'll be able to access all your same accounts. But we don't want to do that today. We want to set it up as a new device. We want to generate a new recovery phrase for a brand new setup of a ledger. So I'm going to quickly tap both buttons to select that option. So first step, choose a PIN. So your PIN is only used to unlock your device. Your PIN has really nothing to do with your crypto or your crypto accounts. That is all tied only to your recovery phrase. Your PIN is what keeps people from getting into your Nano, and it's what keeps your Nano locked down. Because once you set up your recovery phrase, anyone who has access to your Nano or PIN would be able to plug it in and have access to those accounts. So you want to make sure you set a nice strong PIN. That way it's impossible for someone to access your Nano, which would be the only other way someone can access your accounts without having your recovery phrase. I definitely always recommend to make the PIN the full 8 digits in length. However, even if it's a pretty randomized 4 digits or 6 digits or however long you want to make it, it can be between 4 and 8. It's very unlikely that someone will be able to guess it. And the reason for that is because the Nanos all come with a security feature where you only get 3 tries to input a PIN. And then after the third incorrect failed attempt, your Nano is going to completely reset, factory reset back to the beginning. And if that happens, then the only way to restore access to it is with the recovery phrase. And so honestly, there isn't really much fear as long as you have a good, strong pin of like leaving your Nano, for instance, like in your desk drawer versus putting your Nano in your vault or in your safe, because your Nano is your signing device. And it would be really impractical for someone to like do anything with it unless they also knew your pin. It would mostly just be more of an inconvenience for you if it was stolen, because you would then have to buy a new Nano, which, you know, they're kind of expensive. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select both buttons to choose the pin. And I'm going to go against my own advice. I do this every week, but I'm going to make it nice and easy to remember. That way, I'm never going to load any crypto onto this device, or more importantly, onto the recovery phrase that we're about to set up with this device. So I'm just going to make my pin 1111. And then check this out. So after I select one. I don't know if you can see that. There's like a little underline underneath the one. It's kind of blurry. So I select it, and then it randomly jumped to the 9. And then if I go back to the 1, it's going to jump to the check. But if I hit 1 again, it'll randomly jump to a different number. And so it'll always randomly jump to a different number every time you select a number. And that's just a further security measure. That way, if you are out in public or if there's people around you, and they're like trying to like count your button presses, they won't be able to figure out your pin by counting your button presses, because there's this random element that's tied to entering your pin every time you do it, and so it's going to be different every time. Kind of like not a super like known security measure, but a pretty cool one if you think about it. All right, cool. So now we are going to be given our phrase. All right, so this is the most important part of the entire thing. And this is the part usually where I go like this, where I switch back to the main shot and I kind of like hammer home the importance of recovery phrases. So your recovery phrase is also known as your seed phrase, also known as a mnemonic phrase. There's a lot of different names for it, but basically what it is it is the master private key for your crypto accounts. So it's in a word format, which makes it nice and easy for a user to write down, you know, a set of words, and you can keep that stored somewhere. But really, these words can be converted into a different format, hex format, which will create a extremely long sequence of characters that will be basically your master private key. So your words are directly convertible into your master private keys. And so if anyone were to get their hands on these words, they would immediately have access to all your accounts. Like, let's say I wrote down my words in here and I took a picture of it with my cell phone. And I was like, okay, cool. Now I got a picture in my gallery and my important folder, my important stuff folder or whatever. And then my phone gets a virus on it and all of my photos are leaked. And, you know, the attacker happens to have, you know, a bot that can recognize, you know, like recovery phrases or something. Or the attacker just gets the information and is going through and it's like, oh, that looks like a crypto recovery phrase. They would immediately be able to use that to access all the accounts. Nothing stopping it. Your PIN at that point wouldn't stop anybody. Nothing would be able to stop that person. The only thing that would be able to stop that person is if you were aware of the situation and you moved all your crypto before that person was able to access your accounts. So it's a very serious thing to keep in mind that your recovery phrase should never be shared with anybody. If anyone claiming to be from any support, including Ledger support, ever asks you for your recovery phrase in any way, even like in an abstract way, like maybe they'll be like, oh no, don't share your recovery phrase with me. That would compromise your accounts. But here, go to this application and, you know, like unlock your accounts or back up your accounts, or, you know, they have a whole bunch of different ways that they try to like social engineer people to trick people into giving up the recovery phrase. Because when it comes to crypto, you cannot steal someone's crypto unless you have their private keys. The only way to steal crypto from an account is with the private key. And your 24 words are your master private key for all of your accounts. It's important to remember, meaning that if you have Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, HBAR, you have like all these different assets and you lose your recovery phrase, it will all be vulnerable, every single account. So I really... I do this every week and I get on, but like, you know, it's a really difficult conversation to have with people. And honestly, I don't want anyone to lose their crypto. Like, so I'm gonna sing it from the mountaintops, and I'm gonna, hammer it home every week just to make sure that everyone that comes to these onboardings and comes to our AMAs, like, has a little bit more of an edge. You have a little bit more information, a little bit more power, a little bit more understanding of how this stuff works, so that you can protect yourselves. Because that's my job, is to help you protect yourselves. So keep those 24 words locked up. Don't put them online at all. Don't transcribe them into a password manager. Don't transcribe them into a notes application. Don't take a picture of them. It's much safer just to write them down on a piece of paper and then keep that piece of paper. Never let it touch a computer or the internet in any way at all. And if you're worried about your paper, because paper is very flimsy, obviously, there's other options. You can back it up in steel. You can back it up. Really, backing it up in steel is kind of the go-to way to do it, because that'll protect against fire, flood, natural disasters, whatnot. And we do sell some of these things on our website, but there's actually a lot of options out there. So it's definitely worth looking into, backing up your recovery phrase in steel. Okay, I'm going to get off the recovery phrase soapbox for now, and we're going to continue on with setting up the device. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and get these words going. So your device will generate your 24 words. It's your only backup to your accounts. Write it down in the recovery sheet in the correct order, very important. And then press both buttons to continue. All right, so it immediately starts giving us words. So I'm going to go ahead and try to set this up so I can, there we go. Pretty good. Okay. So these words all come from the BIP 39 word list, which BIP stands for Bitcoin Improvement Protocol. And so what all that means is that's just the protocol that was when this standard was adopted. So that's why it's called the BIP 39. There's a lot of BIPs, like Bitcoin Improvement Protocols, that have come out, and they all kind of like govern different things. But this one is for seed phrases. And so this is a list of 2,048 total possible words. That's where all seed phrases come from. The same list of words, and it's always randomized and given to users. And so that's what's happening right now. Is our Nano is just randomly pulling 24 words from that list and giving it to us. And then this is going to become our master private key. Sorry, it's kind of hard to multitask during this step, so I'm just going to go ahead and just run through it real quick. I'll try to explain a little bit as I go. One thing, make sure you write them down in the correct order. I mentioned that a minute ago, but if you see on this recovery sheet, it's labeled, or it's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so top to bottom, left to right, whereas other recovery sheets are maybe left to right, top to bottom. So make sure you get them in the correct order. That way there's no confusion in the future. Because if you have to recover your accounts and they're not entered in the correct order, well, then that would be a completely different recovery phrase, and it would not give you access to your accounts. And it's a good idea to take your time during this step too. There's no rush. No rush in doing this. You want to make sure you write nice and legibly. You don't want to have a situation where you can't read your own writing. That could create a pretty bad situation potentially in the future. If you can't read some of your words and you're not sure what they are, it can be really difficult to try to figure that out. Okay, cool. So at this point, You can go back to the left and you can, verify all your words if you want. But then also, it's going to make you do that anyway, confirm your recovery phrase to continue. It's very important that these are done, that this is written down correctly. So it's in the best interest of the user to really take your time and make sure, because if you wrote down your words incorrectly and then you weren't, like, you didn't have to verify, then you wouldn't know for sure that you wrote down your words correctly. And you can be in a situation where the words you wrote down are not the words stored in your device. And then for years, maybe you're operating under the assumption that you will be able to back up your accounts if necessary. And then the day comes where you have to, and then it turns out that your words are not correct, or some of your words are not correct. So definitely make sure you exercise a lot of diligence and don't cut corners in this process. This is important. Yeah, very important. All right, so to verify your words, it's going to give you, I think, like three or four possible words that it could be. So you just have to scroll and find the right one. So we got pet, prison, alpha, fever, flap, hawk, visual. Okay, and I'll just go in and finish this up real quick. Okay, cool. Your recovery phrase is set. Keep it in a secure place. So if I got any of the words wrong, it would have told me. It would have told me like incorrect word, try again. So we know that the words are correct. What I have written down is what is being stored in this device. So we can go to the right. It's saying don't lose this. If it's lost, stolen, or forgotten, then you would basically be locked out of your accounts for good. There's no way to regain access to your accounts without either this recovery phrase or with a nano that has the recovery phrase stored in memory. So that means that if you were to lose your recovery phrase but you still had your nano, then it's not possible at that point to extract the phrase from the nano. So if your nano were to get like accidentally reset, or you drop it in your coffee or whatever, then that would be it. That'd be game over. There would be no way to recover your funds. So make sure you take this serious and keep your words somewhere where only you know where they're at and in a very safe place. Whatever place that may be for you. It may be different for everybody. All right, cool. Never share it with anybody. Now press both buttons to continue. Processing. All right, your device is ready. Go to the dashboard. All right, so at this point, the nano is fully set up with the recovery phrase. It's ready to go. So now we can take this recovery phrase, and ideally we would store it like in our safe or a lockbox or in a waterproof capsule buried underground. Like, I don't know, like whatever makes the most sense for you, for where you're at and what your situation is. Some people may live in a country or a place where they have a bank that they've been banking with for a long time and they trust that bank, and they have a safety deposit box and they want to use that. Whatever you think is best. There's no real right or wrong way to do this. Well, there is a wrong way to do it. The wrong way to do it is to store a digital copy of it or store it anywhere where someone else could potentially get their hands on it. So you do want to keep it as hidden and safe as possible. So I'll ease up on that now. Let's continue with this. All right, so now let's reopen Ledger Live. Now that we have our nano fully set up, we'll reopen Ledger Live. Okay, there we are, back to the get started. So we're gonna get started. We have a Nano S Plus, and we already have a recovery phrase. We just set that up. So let's go. We don't need to restore it on a new device. It's already done. We already have a recovery phrase. So we're gonna choose this option to just connect our nano and get started. So this is what's known as a genuine check. So the genuine check occurs when you set up Ledger Live for the first time right now on this step. And it also happens anytime after this step that you have to connect to the My Ledger tab, which I'll show you here in a minute what that is. But basically, this is the tab in Ledger Live where you have to go to install Nano apps onto your device and to update your device. And so without the Nano apps installed on the device, it's not possible to create a crypto account in Ledger Live. It's not possible to create an account anywhere with your Nano without the Nano app. And so, so basically this makes it so that before anything can ever be installed in your Nano, one, it has to be approved by the user physically. Like, we're going to have to give Ledger Live permission to do this genuine check, but also to install apps, we're going to have to give permission to do the genuine check and to install those apps. And then we'd be able to safely proceed from there. So let me show you what that looks like. So we're going to check our Nano. And then right here it says allow a secure connection with Ledger. Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to allow that, because I want Ledger Live to check my Nano. And it's real quick. All good. Your Nano S Plus is genuine and ready to use with Ledger Live. So now we know that our Nano is genuine. So we get a lot of questions about that from people who buy from resellers, people who buy, maybe they get a hand-me-down Ledger from a friend who's like, hey, I've been using this Ledger for a while. I just upgraded. It's still good. Here, why don't you use it to get started? And then your first reaction is like, why would I use your Ledger? Like, that's weird. Like, didn't you have your crypto like tied to that Ledger? Like how does that work? Well, the truth is, the only thing that your Nano really stores in memory that has anything to do with the crypto is your 24-word recovery phrase. And so if you were to factory reset, and this is why it's okay for me to set up the same Nano every week after week, and show you like that. In fact, on my onboarding last week, I actually left the Nano set up and I showed the process of completely factory resetting it by intentionally putting the pin incorrectly 3 times. And then I was able to start from scratch. And so if you do get a hand-me-down Nano, or if you do buy from a reseller that you're not sure if you can trust it or not, so there's a few things to keep in mind. As long as the Nano didn't come with a recovery phrase pre-printed out, like on a sheet, like if you got like a recovery sheet that looked like this and already had words on it, then that's obviously a scam. That's someone trying to get you to use that recovery phrase to load crypto onto, and they also have a copy of it and they're just waiting, and then they suck all the funds out that you load onto there. That's not a super common scam because it's kind of obvious, but it has tricked people before. Like people, and not that it's obvious. Like it's like I don't mean to say that like it tricks like people who get tricked by that are not as intelligent or something. It all depends on education level. If you're very new to crypto, but you're like a rocket scientist, you can definitely get tricked by that just as easily as anybody else. So as long as there's no words printed out in the box beforehand, and as long as you connect your Nano and it doesn't ask you for a PIN. If you connect the Nano and it asks you for a PIN, that means it's already set up. That means there's already a recovery phrase in memory. And so if you don't know the PIN, then you can just manually enter the whatever PIN incorrectly 3 times, reset it, generate a new recovery phrase, and proceed from there. And then as long as you pass the genuine check in Ledger Live, which we already did it once to get into Ledger Live. Now if I break the connection, the connection has been broken now. So Ledger Live is no longer communicating with this Nano. Now I replug it back in and I put in the PIN, which is 1111. Okay, back to the Nano. Now if I go to the My Ledger tab, which is down here, I'm gonna have to redo the genuine check. See, it's asking me again, allow Ledger Manager. Yeah, let's do it. And so now it's checking to see if my operating system is genuine. And if it lets you in, then it's genuine. If it doesn't let you in, it'll tell you your firmware is not genuine, contact Ledger support. So you wouldn't be able to get to the point where you could even load Nano apps onto the Nano. So let's continue. Let's go ahead and we'll just add the Bitcoin app, and we'll throw on the Ethereum app just because. I'm not actually going to be loading any crypto into these accounts today. I have another Nano, which actually I didn't grab it. I'm going to have to probably pop out for a second to grab that. But I have my work Nano that I use for demonstrations and stuff. So then I can go grab that and show you guys some other cool stuff here in a second. Or I can just pop right into answering questions. I know that it looks like, yeah, it looks like Steve is still answering questions. Thank you so much for that, by the way, Steve. But anyway, to continue with what I was going on, so we're in the My Ledger tab. We did the genuine check. We have Nano apps installed. So what these Nano apps do is these Nano apps give your Nano all the software and tools that it needs to interact with these specific blockchains. So like, for instance, if I want to create a Bitcoin account, I have my recovery phrase, I have a master private key that I can use to derive a Bitcoin address, but my Nano doesn't know how to talk to Bitcoin right now. So that's why I had to install this Bitcoin app right here, so that my Nano can learn how to talk to Bitcoin and create an account. So then now I can create an account on Bitcoin. And this is the same is true with all these Nano apps. To create an account on any specific blockchain, you will need that applicable Nano app. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open the Bitcoin app to create an account. It asked me to do that. So now it's synchronizing. It's able to talk to Bitcoin right now. Okay, cool. So it created this Bitcoin account right here. Bitcoin actually has 4 different address types. You've got Legacy, SegWit, Native SegWit, and Taproot, which you can see all 4 of them if you click this Show Address Type. We always recommend to just use Native SegWit in Ledger Live. It's the most widely compatible type of Bitcoin wallet, Bitcoin account type. However, there's a lot of confusion around the Bitcoin account types. So since you're here, I'm going to drop a little bit of like deeper knowledge on this for you. It doesn't really matter what Bitcoin account you have. All Bitcoin accounts are compatible with one another. You can send Bitcoin back and forth between the different accounts. The only time it would really like cause issues is if like, first off, if you want to store ordinals, inscriptions, which is like NFTs, tokens on Bitcoin, you have to have a Taproot account. So that's one thing that you'll have to do. And as of right now, that feature is not built into Ledger Live. So Ledger Live, you won't be able to manage ordinals or inscriptions. So you would actually have to connect your Ledger to a different wallet. Like for instance, like I think Sparrow. I almost called it Raven wallet. Like, yeah, getting my birds mixed up. But the Sparrow wallet, I believe, I think there's others that are good for that, but that's one that I know that I've used and I like it a lot. So that would be one, like in a case like that. But if you're just buying Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin, Native SegWit's the way to go. And because the only other issue that you might run into, to my knowledge, is if you were to try to withdraw from an exchange, and then the Native SegWit addresses all start with BC1. And so you could run into an issue where if you have like a SegWit, which starts with 3, or a Legacy, which starts with 1, that the exchange will be like, oh, invalid address, try again. And it's like, well, no, it is a valid Bitcoin address. This exchange just doesn't recognize it because their system isn't set up to recognize that. Where the transaction would work if the exchange would just let you send it, but they're flagging it as being not applicable. So that could cause you a bit of a headache. So yeah, it's just easiest usually just go with Native SegWit. Okay, cool. So that's enough about Bitcoin and their address types. Okay, cool. So now we have a Bitcoin account right here in Ledger Live, and we can go to the back to the My Ledger tab, and I just wanted to show you this real quick because it's very important to understand this. I mentioned that the Nano apps are only needed to create and interact with accounts, but this account is already in Ledger Live. Like we've already added it. So that means that Ledger Live is able to see this Bitcoin account, which exists on the blockchain because it has the public wallet address of this Bitcoin account. So technically, just to view this account and see it, we no longer need the Bitcoin app. So we can actually go in here and I can delete the Bitcoin app and it'll have no effect at all on the account that I just created. In fact, this account right here, if you go here and you go to receive, we don't even have the Bitcoin app anymore. So I can click on don't have your device, and we can generate this wallet address right here, because Ledger Live has this information. This is just a receive only, view only address. And then now I can even go here. I can go back up here. I can remove this account from my portfolio. I can go back to the My Ledger tab. I can reinstall the Bitcoin app. Then I can re-add a Bitcoin account following the same steps, and then generate the receive address, and it's going to generate the exact same address. That's the exact same account. So let's say that in this scenario, I sent 20 Bitcoin to my account, and then my Ledger Live reset on me because my computer got, like factory reset or something catastrophic happened, or just a Ledger Live application got uninstalled by accident, and I had to start over. Well, it's not a big deal. As long as the recovery phrase stored in your Nano has not been changed, then you can just go back in, reinstall the Bitcoin app, re-add a Bitcoin account. And during this step, if I had sent a whole bunch of Bitcoin to my account, then it's going to pop up right here. It would show it. It would say Bitcoin 1, and then right here it would show the balance, because it's just accessing the exact same account that it was already accessing. And so we add account. We come back up here. I maybe should have taken a note of it. That would have been a better demonstration, but this is the exact same wallet address that we just generated. And you can check that by going back. I'm confident enough in that. You can check that by going back in the video. This is the exact same account. So yeah, that's kind of how like Ledger Live works a little bit. I can show you a little bit more demonstration, or we can pop into the chat right here. It looks like Steve is like rapid fire and answering all your questions. That's awesome. It looks like Steve's got it. Cool. So let me bear with me for 1 minute. I'm gonna pop out and grab my other work nanos. That way I can show you a little bit more about what's possible in Ledger Live. I'll be right back. Okay, my apologies for that. Okay, let me pull out this other nano real quick. Okay. All right. So we're in our account. So you can see I added this Bitcoin account right here from this nano. I got this other nano right here that I use for work. I'm going to break the connection here. Set this one to the side, somewhere where you can see it. And then I'm going to plug in my work nano. I'm going to put in the pin off camera because I do have funds on this nano. Okay. We go here. So then now I want to add a Bitcoin account for my other nano. Let's say you have two nanos. Now keep in mind, this nano and this nano, they have completely different recovery phrases. This nano has this recovery phrase that we just set up. And then my work nano has a recovery phrase that I set up when I first started the job. It was part of my onboarding, was to set up my ledgers. And so I keep that recovery phrase in a very safe, secure place where no one can ever find it except for me. So now ideally we're going to generate totally different accounts. So now your Ledger Live is simply just a window into your crypto vaults. Your crypto is not actually stored in Ledger Live. We kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. And so this is why you can just willy-nilly add and remove accounts like this, and it's really no big deal. And you can also add accounts from as many different nanos with as many different recovery phrases as you want. And Ledger Live, so I'll go through this process right now to add the Bitcoin account from this ledger. We have to open the Bitcoin app to do that. So I mentioned that if there was Bitcoin, so this is what it looks like. You see, unfortunately, I don't have 20 Bitcoin in this account, but I do have 0.00107554 Bitcoin in this account, and it detects it. It's right there. It knows that this account lives on the blockchain only. The Bitcoin blockchain knows that this account contains this much Bitcoin, and so that's where Ledger Live is pulling its data from. It's through an API. It's contacting the Bitcoin blockchain directly, and it's pulling in that information. It's saying, okay, how much Bitcoin is in this wallet? Okay, cool. That's how much is in it, verified. So we're gonna go ahead and display that. So set that down real quick. I'm gonna give this a different name. That way I know Stadium Goods. That way I know it belongs to the Stadium Goods ledger. That way I don't get it confused in Ledger Live. And I'll go ahead and add the account. So Ledger Live, even at this point, Ledger Live has no idea that whether which nano these accounts belong to. All it knows is the public wallet address, the XPub address of these accounts. And so you might have noticed just now when I went to the add account for Bitcoin, it gave me a second option. We'll let that load. I should have kept that up. But yeah, so I already added this account, and so now it's grayed out. But now it's giving me the option to add a Bitcoin 2 account, a second account. And the reason for that is because an unlimited amount of crypto accounts can be derived from any given recovery phrase. And so, but in Ledger Live, you have to actually fund the first account to have access to the next one. So if I were to add this Bitcoin 2 account, so we'll call this one BTC-Stadium Goods-2 for the second one. And if I were to send some of this Bitcoin from this account to this account, then I would be able to add the third Bitcoin account that can be derived from this recovery phrase. And you can do that an unlimited amount of times. You can add as many different, keep in mind, things can get very confusing if you're like, for instance, like, you're using like the 50th possible Bitcoin account that can be derived from your recovery phrase, and you're using that. Yeah, that may add a little bit of security because it make it really hard to find, funds tied to an account really far out. But it could also make it really hard for you to remember, which Bitcoin account was I using? It may not create a situation where you're permanently locked out of your funds, but it could just create a big headache for you in the future. So it's definitely important just to know which nano your accounts belong to and keep it properly labeled. That way there's just no confusion. So if I want to test this theory, so I added all these Bitcoin accounts. We know that this Bitcoin 1 account was made from this blue nano right here. What happens if I try to access this account from the wrong nano? So then we'll go receive. And I'm not going to click on this don't have your device because I wanted to actually try to sync with this nano. And this is what happens. Something went wrong. Please check that your hardware wallet is set up with the recovery phrase or passphrase associated to selected account. This is a hard stop right here. So now it's okay, you want to actually access this account. Well, to do that, you need the private keys for this account. Otherwise, you can't access it. You can look at it all you want. It exists here, but you can't access it without the key to the account. And so this nano doesn't have the right key to access this account. The key to this account is inside this nano right here. So we get this error message. And so anyone who's messed around with multiple nanos, recovery phrases, accounts, and Ledger Live has probably gotten this error message at some point. That's what that means. It just means you're using the wrong nano. Let's see. So yes, that's pretty much what I got for that. Let me take a look at the comments real quick. Yeah, Steve is handling the comments. That kind of frees me up to just kind of keep showing you guys demonstrations. So if you are here just to get questions answered, please continue engaging with Steve. He's doing an awesome job. I'm going to show you one more thing real quick since we have some time. Let's for this demonstration, for my next demonstration, let's go ahead and add an Ethereum account. So now, and we're going to do this from the Stadium Goods for my work nano because it has Ethereum in it. And so we're probably not going to use the blue nano anymore because this is an empty nano. There's no funds tied to the recovery phrase in this nano. Cool. So it's detecting my ETH that I have tied to this nano. tied to the recovery phrase in this nano. Very important to keep things straight, to try to avoid as much confusion as possible. Obviously, this entire thing, if you're watching this for the first time and like you haven't actually like explored these topics, you're probably like sitting there like, what the heck is this guy even talking about right now? Totally understandable. For that, recommend asking Steve if you want clarification, and he'll be happy to clarify for you, or pop into our Wednesday or Thursday AMAs. And if you haven't checked out the EU team's AMAs with Dan, Prinjal, Felix, Remy sometimes does it. Their AMAs are fantastic. They are probably more knowledgeable than I am on this stuff. So definitely check out theirs too if you're looking for more live support. All of our shows are really good. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and add this ETH account real quick. And then you can see that this ETH account actually does have some other assets in it. We got some Matic tokens, some Link. These never went away when I removed the account. I just had to reaccess it. So let's see, so now we have this ETH account. Let's check out the Zerion tab, or the Zerion dApp. So real quick, let me go back to that account real quick, just for a little bit of context here, what I'm about to show you. So you see that we have these tokens here inside ETH. Anyone who has held ERC20 tokens is probably familiar with how this looks. But if any of you have not, there are a lot of projects that are actually built on top of Ethereum or built on top of Polygon or any of the other smart contract platforms. Ethereum is the most popular, so it's just the easiest one to use as an example. But Binance Smart Chain is also one. Crypto.org chain. Actually, technically, Arbitrum and Optimism are layer 2s for ETH. They're not their own blockchain. And we can get real confusing real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and just say that we have this Ethereum account. We have tokens here that exist on top of Ethereum as ERC20 tokens, and they can be sent directly to your Ethereum wallet address and stored in your Ethereum account. So we actually have this app here. So Ledger Live can detect most of these tokens. But there are some circumstances where Ledger Live maybe is not able to detect these tokens yet, because it actually requires, because remember, the crypto is not being sent to Ledger Live. The crypto is not being sent to your ledger. It only ever exists on the blockchain. So think about the blockchain as being this own private network of transactions. And so it's confirming and sending transactions between different accounts all the time on the blockchain. And so Ledger Live is outside of that. Ledger Live sits there and it says, okay, you want to view an account on the blockchain. Okay, which blockchain? Install that app. Okay, cool. Now I can talk to that blockchain. Let's generate give me the public wallet address. And so you add an account with your Nano and it gives Ledger Live the public wallet address. Now Ledger Live is able to pull in that information. And so if Ledger Live hasn't been set up to recognize a specific crypto asset, be it a token or a mainnet coin, then it just cannot interact with it. So a lot of people will be in a situation where they'll get into a new meme coin or just a new token that exists on a specific network, and they want to store it in their ledger. So they'll send it to their ledger account. And so there could be a situation where if it's a new one, Ledger Live hasn't yet been set up to recognize that token. And so you'll send it and it'll be like, well, I can see that my Link and my Matic and my Crypto.com and Tether have all safely arrived into this account. How come my Pepe token hasn't arrived? Like, how come it's not showing here in my tokens? Like, did I lose it for good? Like, is it gone? The answer to that is most likely no. As long as you put in the correct wallet address and send it, then that token definitely exists inside your account as long as no mistake was made. The issue here is just that Ledger Live can't see it. And it just needs to be updated. Ledger Live needs to be updated to be able to recognize that token contract address to be able to display it for you in Ledger Live. So there's a couple things you can do. You can generate your receive address from here. And you can copy that receive address. And then you can go to your Explorer. For Ethereum, you'd want to go to Etherscan. You can go right to the block Explorer that you want to that's applicable to the blockchain. For Ethereum, it's Etherscan. For Binance Smart Chain, it's BSC scan. For Polygon, it's hang on. Polygon scan. Predictably, yeah, they're very similar. Yeah. So for instance, so for Ethereum, we want to go to etherscan.io. We copied our public wallet address from here. We go here to the block explorer, which the block explorer is the ultimate truth. Like it'll show everything that's in your account, even if it's a token that the website does not recognize, it'll still show it in your account as a contract address, an unlabeled, unnamed contract address. So we look up this and we see that we have here's some good examples. Right here, this random token that it's showing, this is probably some scam token that was airdropped into my account that I don't know anything about and not interested in. Well, it's going to show up on Etherscan because this is the block explorer, but it's not going to show up in Ledger Live because honestly, our developers, why would they add support for some random, token that has no value or no use case or anything? So that's why you can see that here on Etherscan, but you can't see it in my account in Ledger Live. And that's a good example to show like a scam token. But what about like something like Pepe? It's not a scam. It's just a meme coin that maybe we didn't have support for yet. So that would also show up on Etherscan, but we actually have an easier way to do it, less technical. You can go here to the Discover tab. You can scroll down here, find the Zerion app. Here it is. It's blue with these little white triangles. Click on that and click continue. And then this app will actually detect all the assets in your account, even if Ledger Live doesn't yet support it. This is a service that exists outside of Ledger Live. We're partnered with them, and so we have this really cool app built into Ledger Live to access their service. So this is Zerion service, and Zerion is really good at token support. And they're also really, really good at detecting assets on other chains. Like for instance, you see here, it's showing Ethereum Arbitrum right there. Like I do have 0.027 Ethereum on Arbitrum, which isn't even added to Ledger Live, but it's detecting it on this other network. So if I go back here, I can go to the accounts tab. Let's add an Arbitrum account and see what's going on. Arbitrum, ETH, which Arbitrum is a layer 2 for ETH, but it kind of exists outside of the Ethereum blockchain. And so, yeah, we haven't even added that. So we didn't even know we had, but here it is, 0.0275 ETH in this Arbitrum account, Arb-Stadium Goods. Okay, and since that one's funded, we of course can add a second one if we would like to, but we don't want to. We're just going to use this one account. And there it is. There's a Arbitrum account. And this Arbitrum account, it used to have this token in it, but it doesn't anymore. You can go here and you can go hide token if it's empty, and it may or may not work. If I clear the cache, it'll probably force that to go. But yes, then we go back to the Zerion, and you can see that Zerion was detecting that account even though it wasn't even added to Ledger Live. So if you do have a token that you ever send to Ledger Live and it's just not showing up in your account, and and maybe you've even gone to Etherscan or you've gone to the Block Explorer and you're like, well, it's right there. Like, what's going on with Ledger Live? Maybe check Zerion, because one cool thing about Zerion is you can actually send and swap and do things from Zerion. So like, let's say this is not a great example because these tokens are supported in Ledger Live. But let's say just for the sake of argument that Chainlink is not supported in Ledger Live, which is ridiculous because it is. But we can go here and we can actually send it from Zerion. We would have to put in the recipient address right here. And we can also send NFTs too if we had any NFTs in the account. So that's one way to access your account from Ledger Live, even if it's not quite supported in Ledger Live. And now it's not foolproof. It doesn't detect everything, and it doesn't detect every blockchain. However, it's a good place to start if you are in that situation. Cool. Well, it looks like we're pretty much at time right now. I was able to show you guys some pretty cool stuff. I hope that you all kind of learned something from this demonstration. And it looked like Steve's been pumping away on the questions. So yeah, if you did come here to get your questions answered by one of the by the mod, and Steve answered your question, fantastic. But yeah, I think we're probably going to wrap it up for the day. We are going to be doing another. Let me pull up real quick because it's always hard for me to keep this straight here. Pull up our social media schedule. Here, let me switch back here so you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, so we have a support page that has our whole social media schedule. So, and it's split up between EU and US. The EU team has a much larger presence on social media right now. We are slowly ramping up, but our team is quite small over here in the US. So yeah, so if you're looking for more support, the EU team, they do a Monday AMA. And that is at 7 a.m. On YouTube. And in fact, after this stream gets done, I'm going to actually go in and schedule that. Actually, that one actually might already be scheduled. So definitely check our page or whatever. So that's going to be 4 p.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time. And then Tuesday, they do another AMA on YouTube, which is at 7:30 a.m. Pacific Time, 4:30 Central Time. And then Wednesday, they do a Twitter live weekly tech update. Yeah, and you can just hear, I'm just going to drop this. Instead of just reading this to you, I'm just going to drop this in the chat. Social media schedule. So yeah, definitely come and check out all of our shows. Like I said, our EU team is incredibly knowledgeable. They've been doing this stuff for a long time. So definitely pop into their shows if you have other questions, or if those times are more complimentary for your schedule. Definitely recommend it. Although I do love seeing you in the shows that I host, so please also keep coming to my shows too. And yeah, so my shows are on Wednesday and Friday. Wednesday AMA at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then Friday, live onboarding for new Ledger users. That is at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, I hope that you guys all got something out of this. Let me switch back here. So yeah, I'll go ahead and wrap it up for the day. And I hope you all learned something, and I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. And we will see you next week. Yeah, stay safe. Bye, everybody.